Welcome to another Coil Chat. I wanted to come and talk today about Elizabeth Smart because she's been brought into the news because of Wanda Barzee, and we're going to talk about that. Imagine being taken from your home at 14, held captive for 9 months, and emerging not just as a survivor, but as a beacon of hope for others. This is Elizabeth Smart's story, and she's prolific for Utah, but all over the world, and being known for what it means to overcome really, really horrific circumstances and be able to move forward to be, like I said, a beacon of light and hope for other people. If you remember, in June 2002, Elizabeth was abducted from her Salt Lake City home by Brian David Mitchell and Wanda Barzee. After 9 harrowing months, she was rescued in March of 2003. If you remember, and I remember, I lived in Utah. It was in a, neighborhood not far away from my house. And I remember everybody was just stuck to the news because she was taken from her house. Somebody broke into her window. They didn't know where she went. And there was just this manhunt and scramble to find her. I remember her mom and dad just like being on the news all the time, just really sad, obviously, and just begging for anybody with any kind of information to let them know. And it stayed in the news day after day after day. And nobody knew where she was. Nobody could see. And there was all these conspiracy theories. And I just remember it just being utter chaos. When she was found, which was back in Utah, absolutely crazy. Somebody recognized her, called the cops. They ended up being able to go and get her and basically rescue her. We found out that she was taken from Brian Mitchell, who had worked at the family's home. They had been taken up behind her house into the woods. They lived in a tent where horrific things happened to her for day in, day out. They were there for a while, and then they ended up going around and eventually going down to California and then back to Utah. And we hear, all of the horrific things that she had to go through, including just being sexually and physically abused by these people. And then there was just all these stories continually going, that this was a planned abduction, like her family planned it. She was pregnant and they wanted to cover up. I mean, just like the most horrific and frankly stupid things, but so many people were talking about it, like not wanting to believe her because they couldn't believe that this would be happening. They couldn't believe that the manhunt where they were searching all over her house couldn't have found her. But people just don't want to believe what they want to believe. Like, it is what it is, and it happened. And she lived these horrific things for 9 months until she was rescued. The reason why she's back into the news is because of Wanda Barzee's arrest again. Brian Mitchell had a trial and was sentenced to life in prison. He probably will never see the light of day. Wanda Barzee was sentenced to 5 to 15 years, and she ended up getting out, I think, about 5 years ago. But there was elements of her release that she got out on, probation-wise. To be fair, after 5 years, she's off probation, but she still is listed as a sexual offender on the sexual offender registry list. So because you're on that for life or however long, she had to follow terms that required her to stay away from public places with children and to not be around children. Wanda, who is 79 now, was arrested for violating this by visiting public parks in Salt Lake City. These are areas that are prohibited to registered sex offenders. And the public reaction obviously is just been a little bit crazy because part of me is like, how, is she mentally there? Wanda Barzee tried to show that she was mentally incompetent to stand trial. And the judge finally found her mentally competent. And I think that happened, it took a few years for them to figure that out. But she was mentally competent, stood trial, and then was found guilty. When Wanda was released, she was very vocal about her concerns regarding Barzee's release and actions emphasizing the need for stringent monitoring of released offenders. So she was really nervous about Wanda. Elizabeth came out and was very, very adamant that Wanda Barzee was just as culpable as Brian Mitchell. She should be held just as accountable. And I agree with that. Like, we hear her in the trial, we heard just the horrible things that she would watch, encourage, she would threaten Elizabeth Smart. Elizabeth has been very vocal about how she's still a danger to society. And now she's been arrested for basically violating the terms of being a registered sex offender. And so with that, I want to talk about Elizabeth Smart's advocacy and recent activities because she does a lot of foundation work. Through her foundation, Elizabeth focuses on educating children about safety and the supporting survivors of abuse. She goes around and she's really big into her advocacy. And I think it's amazing. I'm really proud of her. I think she is the absolute pinnacle of what it is to survive and be able to thrive after tragedy. Really proud of her and love the work she's doing. That's another Coil Chat. Follow me on all things social at Jill Coil. Till next time.